got the new clutch back into my GT that I'm planning to sell for big money. All right, time for the transmission. Tommy and Tito are at the shop rat-rotting an old caddy that my dad thinks is a rare and valuable mirage. I can't wait to tell him what it really is. Here we go. Danny are on a mission to recover a trans from a deadbeat who never paid for it. Rock and roll.
Just some fun videos.
That's it.
He's going live for fun. I'm going live for fun.
Try to be quiet, try to be fast.
Taking this transmission.
Taking the trans. Either give me the money. You didn't pay anything for it. Either give me the money or I'm taking the trans. If you come near me with that thing, I'll kick your ass.
I'm ready to kick his ass. I wanted to kick his ass.
You need to go. Go. I'm taking the trans. No. Call the police. If you come over any farther, it's not your trans.
They're taking it.
It'll be on my property in a minute.
You're going to catch an ass whipping to the track.
I'm going reply.
Thank you and have a nice day, sir. What a deadbeat.
I'm going live.
I was going to hit you with that stun gun for a minute.
Throw that above his head. I'm thinking I could take one good stun.
I don't think so. I think it would have fell to the ground like a dead whale. Now, I would have had a hard time picking him up, let me tell you that. I think we make an awesome team.
Yeah, Danny and I got the job done.
Jack and Kyle and I,
YouTube.
we walked in on Diane, Mom, and his...
Going live for fun. Hey guys, Tyler here. I was thinking about doing something stupid the other day, but the thing is though, I don't know how to do that. And there's this guy I was reading about that made a
John Mays Redfield arrives.
10 diamond. Wow.
Wickedly hilarious.
I like living in the state. I like living here in Michigan. You pay a dime for water in in Oregon? Damn. I'm glad this is free. So guys, Tyler here, just killing time, just having some fun.
And 5-year-old, and he's about to have a birthday, which means he's going to be 6. Can you guess what I'm getting?
So yeah guys, just having fun today, relaxing, just had a fun day, just having a fun day. They're working on 2 roads near where I live, and it really pisses me off because one of the roads I use is to go to Pigeon City. Can't go there. They closed off the road to I mean, I can go to Pigeon City, but I take the long way, which means take the highway, takes forever to get to Pigeon City. There's a road I could take around the corner, takes me straight to Pigeon City. I had another road I could take me straight to Myers. That road's now closed. So I'm going to have a real hard time getting to where I like going to. Yeah, I can still go to Myers. The problem is, there's now it's a longer trip. I will have to go take 2 streets, 2 more streets than I usually do to get to Myers. So that's going to be a pain in the butt. Thing is though, I might run the camera and do some videos. Also, this May, I haven't been confirmed, this May, something's going to be happening this May that I want to make. And this video's been, this has actually been on the list for, before I even had, this has been on the list for, since I lived in, this has been on my list of things to do for the longest time, so long that I can't tell you what it is, I can't tell you when I want to do this one thing. But this has been something I want to do with, I mean, this is when I still had a pull, I mean, this is when I had one of those early digital cameras that kind of worked. I used it, and I was going to do the video with it. I never did.
And now... Oh. Now we have just bare chain drive and disc brake. By the way, this thing has 1 disc brake, and it's actually hydraulically actuated. An alternator and a 3-phase motor/generator are nearly the same thing, but with a few key differences. Aside from, you know, the name. In both, the stator, the stationary part, consists of, in this simplified example, 3 pairs of electromagnetic coils. In the actual alternator I'm using, it's 18 pairs, but it works the same way, so it doesn't matter. If we isolate 1 pair of these coils and 1 sine wave, you can see as we travel down the sine wave, the electromagnetic field intensity is varying and the polarity is flipping back and forth. But this isn't a single-phase setup, it's a three-phase setup. And if we include all the phases with their respective pairs, you can see that as we travel down the three sine waves, it generates a rotating magnetic field. And this works both ways. In a generator, you put a rotational force to spin the rotor into the generator, and that generates three-phase power out of the stator that can then be exported elsewhere, like, I don't know, the entire electric grid. And in a motor, you put three-phase power into the stator, and it spins the rotor. As I mentioned, the stator from my random trash bin find alternator has 18 pairs of coils instead of just 3. And as you can see through the aid of this magnetic viewing film, if I supply a small DC current to just one of the phase windings, it's every third stator slot that gets magnetized. And just
that's kind of neat.
The stator to my motor controller, so you can watch the rotational magnetic field happen in real time with the magnetic viewing film.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
I think that's pretty cool. In a typical three-phase generator / motor, the rotor is either made of some sort of conductive material, aluminum, copper, laminated steel, what have you, or it's made of permanent magnets. If the rotor is made of some sort of conductive material, then it's an asynchronous induction motor.
I do some
and it's
what's
called
called later.
such because the rotating magnetic field generated by the stator passes over the rotor and generates or induces an electric current into the rotor, causing it to be dragged along with that rotating magnetic field. It's called asynchronous because it drags along behind that rotating magnetic field and is therefore out of sync with it. The rotor is made of permanent magnets, then it's a permanent magnet synchronous motor because the permanent magnets in the rotor follow along exactly with that rotating magnetic field and it's perfectly in sync with it. In an alternator, the rotor is another field winding. It's an electromagnet. And the reason for this is voltage regulation. Because an alternator is hooked up to an engine that varies in speed. If that rotor was a permanent magnet, then the voltage output of the alternator would vary greatly depending on the speed of the engine. But obviously, you don't want that. You want your alternator to put out a constant 13 point whatever volts, no matter what speed the engine is turning at. And the way to change this is by having the rotor be energized by the voltage regulation circuitry on board the alternator. So it can vary the amount of current going into the rotor, which varies the magnetic induction produced by that rotor, depending on the speed that the engine is turning. So for instance, if the engine is spinning at idle, then a fairly high current will be pumped into that rotor, creating a fairly high magnetic field intensity. And if the engine is spinning at, say, 5,000 RPM, then the current being pumped into the rotor will be much less, producing a much lower magnetic field intensity. Also, the alternator can output a constant 13 point whatever volts, no matter the speed it's turning. This is the rotor from my strapped-in alternator. And power is provided to the field winding in the middle here through these two slip rings with these brushes that run around the middle. So, this is the only way I am in the alternator, and as you can see, my slip rings and brushes are quite long, but they work well enough for my purposes anyway. According to those claws around the rotor winding are, those are to direct the polarity of the magnetic field produced by the rotor winding. If those claws weren't there, then the magnetic poles would go out of the rotor axially, which wouldn't do any good at all.
Damn it!
Around the rotor, so you have both stuff around the rotor, so it can actually, work. So all I need to do to convert an alternator into a three-phase motor, remove the diode pump that rectifies the alternating current coming out of the stator into direct current, remove the voltage regulation circuitry that I don't need anymore, solder a couple of wires directly to the brushes so we can power the rotor, simply turn it into a permanent magnet motor, something like this. When I'm powering my rotor using a small bus converter, which will take the 40 or so volts from the battery and regulate it down to a constant voltage or a constant current. I've got this one regulated down to about 3 amps because, I don't know, look at and if it's not already done so, wire the stator terminal into the Delta configuration. My favorite terminal is already wired. So all I had to do was solder some leads
Damn it!
and out of it.
I knew I was gonna lose.
Six individual wires coming out of the stator, one for each end of each phase winding, that I had to manually wire into the Delta configuration, but I ended up not using that alternator because I accidentally broke it. Whoops. Now that my alternator has been converted to a motor by virtue of removing things, let's give it a test. And by the way, my speed controller of choice, the thing that produces the three-phase signal to drive the motor, is this no-name 1500 watt jobber I bought off Amazon for like 80 bucks. It came with absolutely no instructions and all the labels are in Chinese. And I've got a throttle to control it all. Now let's plug up the battery and see that it works, because I've been testing this. Ready?
Recordings just got better.
I lied.
Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to...
Power cable here.
When you're launching a new product with a tight deadline,
2 weeks?
Grammarly's tone suggestions can help.
Right, so in today's video I'm going to review a piece of hi-fi equipment, but I want to preface it with this intro because the thing that I'm looking at is outside the usual area of stuff that I review, so I'll explain why that is. Just before Christmas, my father rang me up to say that he was trying to use his hi-fi and he'd forgotten how to use it. Now, there's a couple of things in here. He's recently had a stroke and he's recovering from that, but also he is in his mid-80s and he tells me that he finds it very difficult sometimes to learn new things or figure out new things, and I don't think he'd used this hi-fi in about a year or so. The hi-fi, in inverted commas, was like a little mini hi-fi thing, cassette, CD, FM radio, all in one, but made to look like a little mini separate system with little speakers, and I think it was Pioneer or Panasonic or something. Came from the 1990s, would have cost next to nothing back then, so a very low-end piece of equipment. It's just sat in the corner of their lounge ever since they've got it. I've never remembered them switching it on. But anyway, so he couldn't figure out how to use it. I said, don't worry, I said, I'll be over in a couple of weeks. He lives at the other side of the country, so it takes me a while to get across to him. I'd already booked a hotel visit. So I said, I'll be over in a couple of weeks. Don't worry, I'll sort it out. We'll have a look at it when I'm over there. So, but this gave me the opportunity then, once I'd hung up, I thought, well, I could get him a new hi-fi, something that wouldn't be the kind of thing that I'd normally feature, but something that would be suitable for him, and then I could make a nice video about it, hopefully a nice video, and then I could pack it all up and take it over to him and set it all up at his house. That's exactly what I did. So I went looking for a piece of equipment, I found it, I got it in, I tested it out, I shot the video you're about to see, showing all the features of it, but then since then, which was in early January, it's gone over to his house. So I haven't got it here now, but I'll go into the video where I explain what it was that I bought for him and why I bought this particular thing, and then I'll come back here at the end and I'll tell you how it worked out.
I have a video. No offense, but you don't want that.
Right, so let me explain what was on my shopping list when I was looking for these. The device just had to have a CD player and a digital radio. Anything else was superfluous. It had to be easy for him to use, given what he said about his previous device, and it just had a little table to sit on in the corner of the room, so it was a compact all-in-one design I was looking at, something with separate speakers. Also had to have a remote control so it could operate it without getting up, and the appearance of it had to match the rest of the furniture, so it had to have a kind of wooden case type design. So not really the kind of thing I'd buy for myself. If I was looking for my own mini hi-fi brand new nowadays, it'd be more along these lines. But for them, I was thinking of something like this, although not a Bose Wave thingamajig. It's got all weird touch controls, which I know they really wouldn't appreciate.
I don't like that
at all. Something a little bit more traditional like this. This was one that I looked at. I thought that was quite nice. That was on the short list. Separate speakers.
£200.
This one again looked pretty good, but
300.
not the right colour. And then I settled on this, the Ruark R4 Mark III. Now I remember seeing the reviews of this a couple of years ago. It got really good reviews, but the thing is, it was really expensive.
£650.
Why it cost so much? It didn't seem to be worth that amount. But
£650.
it still cost that amount now. A couple of years down the line, £630.
Are you kidding me? £700. John Lewis, £700. Damn. I got one back behind me that cost nothing because I got it for free. And mine's from 1980, but those speakers I have there, I had to buy. But I bought the only thing I ever had to do that thing was buy me some new speakers. I think that's all I bought was new speakers for that thing. Everything else is original. That thing.
£30. So I thought that'd be a great thing to try out just to see why it costs so much and is it going to blow me away. And I found one on eBay and I managed to get it just at the end there, you see 30th of December, for around about £400. The reason was it was refurbished. Anyway, it arrived a few days later, and I'll just show you around the box here because it tells you the features that are on this, as well as just playing CD and digital radio. It's got a few other things which I'm afraid they aren't going to be using. Bluetooth aptX, FM has RDS on it. You can put MP3s in via the USB or via the CD player. It's got inputs as well, optical input and
Okay.
auxiliary. Well, 2 auxiliary inputs on there.
I think behind me from the 80s, it works
The
fine.
Aerial. Why can nobody spell aerial? I don't know. Or antennae for that matter. Or antenna. Anyway, bought one of those. Not a big deal. £10 for a new aerial. So
That's not bad.
I ordered that, as you can see at the top there, 30th of December when I bought the thing on eBay. So when it arrived, I could just put it all together. Inside the top of the box, I've got the warranty card and the instruction booklet and the small infrared remote control.
Oh, that's cute. Not
Now,
bad
it's
as
nice
my
to see
big
there are
old.
absolutely no scratches or marks on it at all, despite the fact it said it was refurbished. I think it's just been a display model. It did come from an electrical retailer. On the bottom, we've got metal legs at either side. It's got quite some weight to it. There's a bass port there and a downward firing subwoofer, which should give it a nice rich quality of sound. Adding that to those 2 single drivers on the front, that's a sticker that comes off there. There's a power button next to that, the line input and a headphone output, a slot loading CD drive, an OLED screen, and on the top
I don't have a CD player. I don't use them.
which look a little bit unusual. We've got all these buttons around here which do various things you can see by reading them, and then this dial you can twist it around and click it in to select things. Now, looking around the back, we've got various inputs and outputs on here, which aren't going to go to any use in the location it's going to, but we've got an auxiliary input, there's another one of those, remember, on the front, and a line output, a digital optical input, and a USB port that you can put a USB stick full of MP3s into. Over on the right hand side, we've got the on-off switch, we've got the power connector. Notice it's multi-voltage, this. It's sold throughout the world, I think, but when it's sold in the US, there's no DAB radio, because they don't use that standard over there. In the middle, on the back, that's the aerial socket, and you can see that's the aerial to attach to it that I bought for £10. Now, if this thing was discounted by over £200 just because it was missing a £10 aerial, that's not a bad deal. I still got the little spanner included in here, which is used for tightening the aerial up on the back. So the remote control is an infrared remote, so you do need to point it at the device, but I was glad to see that the buttons on here are proper buttons, clicky buttons, rather than those kind of bubble type buttons you get on some remotes. I don't like those at all. And it's powered by 1 button cell. Right,
I
so
hate
let's
those.
turn it on, but I'll twist the device around first so we can see if anything pops up on the screen when we first switch it on. Extend the aerial as well. And now I'll flip the on switch and see what happens, and there's not an awful lot. It just says Ruark Audio and the time is not set, so I'll need to set that. Now, I had a quick play around with the buttons. This one on the front just dims the display, so it's not that one. I was trying to figure it out by going through the menus, but there are kind of layers of menus on this thing. It's not immediately obvious, some of these settings. Now, this was a little bit of a concern, but again, when it goes over to my parents' house, they're not going to have to mess with any of these things, because I'll set the things up as they should be set initially, and then they can just use it and they don't need to go into any of these things. For example, the date and time, I've set it to a 12-hour clock, but it can also pull the time through from the radio, so I've set it to do that, and therefore they'll never have to set the time and date on this one. So I've done that, but I've noticed one thing. As soon as the radio started playing, it sounded really bad, and also the volume, you can see here, if I turn it up, just look at the display at the bottom there. There's something showing in that white block section, and you can see it says time is not set. It's been burnt into the OLED screen. It must have been sat on display somewhere, so my original idea was right, that it's probably been a display model, with the time is not set flashing over and over again, and it's burnt itself into the OLED. Not a big deal, because that's just a line that displays what's playing at the moment. They're not really going to be looking at it. Also notice the reason why the sound was so bad, wherever it had been on display, someone had put the bass to +4, had also put the subwoofer to +2, and they'd basically turned everything to make it sound as bad as they possibly could do. It's a bit like the shop display on those televisions, when they have the kind of ultra bright mode on it, which you can't use at all in your house. Well, wherever this had been on display, someone had put the bass way up, so it's like, oh, listen to the bass, isn't it really rich? No, it sounds like crap. But anyway, everything was working fine, irrespective of the burnt-in OLED display, which wasn't really that noticeable once it's displaying text rather than those blocks across the bottom. All the DAB stations were coming in loud and clear. You can even look at the signal on them, but just notice that, kilobits a second on DAB, 80 kilobits a second, absolute
That's
rock.
not bad.
That one is also 80 kilobits a second, and this gets me onto a bit of a tangent, talking about DAB radio, digital audio broadcasting, the standard that's used in the UK and many other countries around the world for digital over-the-air radio.
I'm analog still.
After some earlier trials throughout the 90s, DAB was officially launched in the UK in the late 90s to much fanfare, but since then it hasn't gone on to become the success that was first anticipated. The intention was that over time everyone would migrate across to DAB and the FM broadcast would be shut down and that frequency spectrum would be sold off. Well, it's getting on for 25 years after those first broadcasts, and in the UK, FM radio stations are still broadcasting alongside the DAB ones. Over the years, many of those launched DAB stations disappeared, as the listenerships didn't quite match up to the initial expectations. No doubt, a couple of things that held back the adoption of DAB was the fact that the first radios that went on sale were really quite power hungry due to all the processing circuitry, etc. So they could generally only be run from a wall power supply, or if you did find one that took batteries, it took a lot and it burned through them very quickly. Additionally, we'd become used to paying a
L. WRCI 97. WBET 99.3. Sturgis, Michigan. WTV. The Voice of Branch County.
The adoption of DAB was the fact that the first radios that went on sale were really quite power hungry due to all the processing circuitry, etc. So they could generally only be run from a wall power supply, or if you did find one that took batteries, it took a lot and it burned through them very quickly. Additionally, we'd become used to paying a low price for an F.
That one looks like it. That looks like my... Wait. Yeah, it looks like that one looks a little bit like mine, but mine has a tape player on it. Wait.
The first radios that went on sale were really quite power hungry due to all the processing circuitry, etc. So they could generally only be run from a wall power supply, or if you did find one that took batteries, it took a lot and it burned through them very quickly. Additionally, we'd become used to paying a low price for an FM
It looks like mine.
radio, and now all of a sudden DAB with its additional circuitry meant that the price of entry was considerably higher, and that stayed true to this day. Even when I bought a new car last year, DAB radio was an optional very quickly. Additionally, we'd become used to paying a low price for an FM radio.
Nah, he doesn't even know. I already have one of those, you know? Yeah, basically recently.
And now, all of a sudden, DAB with
Yeah,
its additional
but here it is,
circuitry
guys.
meant that the price of entry was considerably higher, and that stayed true to this day. Even when I bought a new car last year, DAB radio was an optional extra.
Who needs it? I need X all the time. I think Canadian transmissions are nice. I wish I could do that. Have a TV and I wish I had a proper television.
Extra when FM was included as standard. I had to pay extra for digital radio. Another problem with DAB is that despite its early promises, it doesn't really sound all that good. In many cases, worse than FM.
FM towns all. DAB.
Part of that is down to the fact that when it was launched in the UK, the codec standard was MPEG-1 Audio Layer 2, also commonly referred to now as MP2. Since then, DAB Plus was introduced, which uses a more up-to-date and efficient codec, and this has gone on to become more successful in some countries where they've effectively reset and relaunched DAB by completely switching over to the new standard. However, back in the UK, the vast majority of DAB stations are still broadcasting on the original 30 or so year old inefficient MP2 codec. The newer DAB Plus standard uses an AAC codec, which is considered to be twice as efficient. So you could use the same bitrate and get significantly improved sound quality.
Nah.
But going back to MP2, which is the standard most used in the UK, according to a BBC research and development document from 2003, they determined that this codec required a 256 kilobits a second bitrate to provide a high quality stereo broadcast. But you could reduce that down to 224 kilobits a second, which was described as adequate. However, reducing the bitrate down to 192 kilobits a second would start to introduce imperfections. Unfortunately, though, in the UK, the companies that have leased the multiplexes, rather than heeding that advice, instead decided to focus on squeezing as many stations as they could into the bandwidth they'd been allocated. And it's worse than just reducing the bitrate. According to this website, which lists the London DAB radio stations, it also goes into whether or not they're broadcasting in stereo. Believe it or not, a lot of these stations are mono, which you can perhaps get away with for spoken word.
Yeah.
But there's some
I have a couple
stations in here. But
This is mono. This is still mono.
Kilobits a second in mono. If you've ever wondered why your DAB radio just sounds a little bit crappy, well, that's because it is. It's MP2,
Still in
for
mono.
God's sake, at 64 kilobits a second in mono. That's appalling, disgusting. In fact, look at these here. I don't know what to say.
What the
I've
hell?
got a £650 radio or thereabouts, but a bit discounted, which is playing back radio that's in mono at 64 kilobits a second. You kind of wonder why you spent all that money. Well, I certainly did anyway. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like DAB Plus is going to ride in on a white horse and save us from this situation. The AAC codec, with its increased efficiency, instead of being used to improve the sound quality with the same bitrate, they've used it to further lower the bitrate so they can squeeze even more stations into the same space. I mean, 24 kilobits a second AAC, yeah, that's going to sound really good, isn't it? The only positive I can put on DAB Plus is that I've noticed on the few stations I've got that have a really weak quality of signal, unlike the DAB stations, these ones don't break up. So yes, the signal on DAB Plus is definitely more robust. Okay, enough about the radio. Let's move on to the only other feature that my parents are going to be using on this, which is the CD player. And it just so happened, as I was putting this together, out of the blue, unsolicited, this CD arrived from this group Pièce de Résistance. It's a group of voiceover artists. It's a serialised comedy podcast. This is the music from that, and I got a nice letter with this, and it was sent from this chap at the back, Chris, who does the incidental music for the podcast, which is what's on the CD. And he was inspired by one of my videos about the Seeburg 1000 when he wanted to make a track that sounded like something that would be playing in the background in a supermarket. I was pleased to see that putting the CD into the slot on the front of the machine turns it on, selects the CD mode, and automatically starts playing it. So that's nice and simple for my parents. You can also see on screen we've got CD text coming through here. The track I'm interested in is number 12, which has the slightly tongue-twistery title of the Swinging 60s Seeburg Supermarket Shuffle. But there's a bit more to it than that, because if you look on the back of the CD case, number 12, you can see after the title in brackets it says For Tech Mode, which is nice for him to put that on there, and indeed that should be on the CD text, but as you can see it stops short. So I was wondering if that's a fault of the CD, didn't have enough room on it, or if it's the machine that I was playing it back on. And sure enough, I played it back on another CD player, and the full title is on there, including the 4 tech mode bits. That's disappointing. The remark doesn't show the full CD text. Now, even though my parents aren't going to use it, I thought I should at least try the Bluetooth connection for completeness sake, and I'm happy to see it also supports Bluetooth aptX.
I don't use Bluetooth that much. I mean, I use Bluetooth once in a white while, but very hardly.
There's a feature on here called 3D, which gives the impression of having a wider sound stage. I prefer it when it's on. I've recorded some of the audio with and without using my digital recorder.
Yeah.
Just have a listen for yourself.
Okay, here's a tech mon. So guys, let's look at my hi-fi, shall we? Oh, that hurt. Now, I have a hi-fi like everyone else does, but my hi-fi is different from everyone else's hi-fi. What do you mean, Tyler? Shut down. Let me show you my hi-fi equipment. Now, if you've been with me for a few years, you know about my hi-fi. It's a 1980s York, or Yorks, and I actually have 2 of them. But, let's do it the old-fashioned way and move some stuff around here, and I'll show you my hi-fi right now. I'll show you my hi-fi right now, so give me a second, and I'll show you my hi-fi. Actually, I'm gonna put this lamp over here real quick, because I need it for a future date. Now, I bought this lamp for a joke, for a video joke. It does its joke well. So, let's go over here. Now, I'm gonna take you to my hi-fi, okay? Now, my hi-fi, this is my hi-fi. It's not that fancy. Okay, here's my hi-fi. Okay, here's my hi-fi, and here's all the tape leaders I made. Here's my hi-fi, and here's a record player. Now, I have 2 record players, actually. This one, this is a 3-way hi-fi. I bought this, I got this for a few years ago at the hardware store. It does its job. It just does. It's just that this one has something my other one doesn't have. This one I play 33s on because it's prettier, and this one actually has Bluetooth on it too. And yes, I will show you it right now. We're gonna hook it up real quick. The thing is, though, the wires that came with it, it never came. The problem with this is, though, I had to hook up. Oh, where's the wires at? Oh, well, that works out perfectly. No, it does not. Oh, crap. I had wires here at one time. I must have lost. Oh, duh. I'm stupid. I couldn't hook the wires. I should hook them back up. I'm stupid. I'm sorry, guys. I took the wires out of the DVD. I took the wires out of this thing. Now, I went to the store a few months ago and bought these. I bought this extremely heavy gauge wire that works real good. Now, this thing does get real loud. We will put something on here that I could play that we won't get in trouble with. Now, before I put this on, I will reset the camera. But I did do some research online, guys. I did some research online before we start. I did some research online. I found some music I could play without worrying about copyright infringement. It's called anything I'm singing from the 1900s or prior is legal now to play in the U.S. Now, the thing is, this thing is so damn old. Red goes where red and blue go. Doesn't matter where red and blue go, does it? This thing is so dang old. Okay. Now this thing's so old, even you can hook an antenna to this. Now I'm gonna have to plug in some stuff in here. Now I usually use a bar, but today, not because I'm lazy, it's just that I don't know where it is. I don't have a bar. Now I'm gonna play the national anthem, guys. Now I can hook up the. Now I'm gonna do some stuff, guys. Now I do a lot of stuff. Okay, this is hooked up. Now I need to get the power cord hooked up. Okay, let's go there. Now I need to hook the power cord up. Okay, now I got some pictures here that I haven't put up yet because I don't want to. Now, this is my hi-fi that we're going to use. Now, this is a two-part hi-fi, and yes, the Bluetooth does work on this. Haven't used the Bluetooth on this in about a month, but for safety reasons, I'm going to play the national. Now, okay. Now I'm going to do this, and to prove that this thing does work, I'm going to. I'm going to lock this. So